welcome to the Call It Both Ways podcast. My name's Kyle Wilson, and joining me today, my co-host Austin Winterberg. So we've got a few things to get to today. We'll talk a little bit about the purpose and intent of the podcast, why we're doing what we're doing. We're going to briefly introduce ourselves, talk a little bit about our own officiating background, maybe talk about a few experiences, and then kind of lay out what we plan to do in the future as far as what this podcast is going to look like. So, Austin.
I'm just really looking forward to this. You know, it's been 2-3 years in the making that we've talked about trying to record something or talk about, you know, rules or situations or just life as an official. So I'm really looking forward to kind of get into that, talk about just anything that really comes to mind. And, you know, like you mentioned, we're going to kind of get into the reasons that we are even starting this to begin with. And in that, we created a kind of a mission statement over the podcast. You want to kind of go over that, Kyle?
Yeah, so I'll actually read part of it and then kind of give a brief synopsis. So our podcast, we aspire to enlighten, educate, and engage both basketball community and the general public by providing an insider's view into the world of basketball officiating. So basically what we want to do is talk about, most podcasts that we've seen in officiating have to do specifically with officiating. They're going to talk about rules and cases, case plays and things like that. And we plan to do that, but we also want to show some of the human side of officiating, talk about some of the issues and problems we deal with, talk about our own personal lives a little bit and what goes into that and what that looks like in the background off the floor. And basically what we want to do is create a bridge. There's obviously been a really big miscommunication, it feels like, for quite a while between fans, coaches, and officials. I don't think that's ever going to completely go away, but if we can do anything to help that, and then kind of the end goal and the overwhelming goal of this is to hopefully not only recruit new officials, but also retain them, because one of my favorite statistics to tell people when we talk about the officiating crisis we're in nationwide is that 70 or 75% of new officials quit within the first 2 years. So it's hard enough to recruit them. It's even harder to keep them. So if we can do anything to help that, man, would that not be worth every second that we spend doing this?
I think it'd be huge. I mean, we've that's the problem that we see year in and year out. You know, I can go back to when we first started officiating. There were so many different faces and so many people that were involved, and over the years, it's really dwindled down. We don't have the numbers anymore. I mean, you've seen the emails. A few years ago, you know, we'd barely get any emails asking to cover games or asking for games to be moved, et cetera, et cetera. Nowadays, it's almost daily that either there's an official needed somewhere or they can't find enough. So they our assigners, the people that send us games, are having to move those games to other dates. I mean, so I think ultimately we just hope that we can share some knowledge, some information, maybe a little bit more on the inside scoop on how officials carry themselves. So hopefully we can, get some interest and maybe get some more younger people to join us like you and I.
For sure. I feel like there's at least enough, maybe not a whole lot, but at least enough people that are at least maybe mildly interested, and there's just something that's keeping them from taking the leap and joining.
Yeah, so and
go ahead.
I think we hear time and time again about people getting yelled at, or people getting screamed at for a wrong call, or something of that nature. And I think you and I both know the first couple of years that may be a little difficult, but as you start to grow into officiating and learn officiating and the rules, that starts to go in one ear and out the other. So it's really, that's the perception of officiating, is that all we do is get yelled at. But in reality, it's only 50% of the gym, field, whatever, yelling at you at any certain time. So at least 50%'s on your side for a little bit, right?
Pretty much every call, yeah. All right, so we're going to kind of briefly introduce ourselves. We don't want you to just think we're two random guys that think we know a little bit about officiating and have a lot to talk about. So I'll start with you, Austin. Talk a little bit about what got you into officiating, maybe talk about your own experiences within your own family and the officials that you maybe watched growing up, and then maybe some of the reasons that you got started in officiating.
Sure, sure. Yeah, it's honestly for me, officiating was something I started in high school because I needed a way to, my parents wanted me to start paying some of my bills, car insurance, gas, food if I wanted to eat out, whatever the case may be. And I think at the time, minimum wage was only, eight and a quarter, 7.75. It was pretty low. And so I, I didn't want to work my life away while I was still in school. And my dad recommended I go officiate at the Boys and Girls Club. So that's what I did. I started officiating $25 a game and started learning, doing the best I could. And yeah, then as soon as I graduated high school, I took the leap into finding some people that were involved. Some of the biggest ones were Mike Durham and Ron Thompson, and they were crucial for me. And they actually came and put a clinic on at a little Boys and Girls Club in Paris, Arkansas, for maybe 8 of us, something like that. And that's stuck with me ever since. So ever from that point on, it was just growth, getting better, learning something new every day, and just doing the best I could. What about you? What got you started?
Well, I had a choice in it for sure, but basically kind of walked into it, following my dad around as a kid. So he's officiated for probably between 30 and 35 years now in 3 or 4 different sports. I can remember my earliest memories maybe back to like 3rd grade, following him to work a state basketball tournament in Oklahoma City. So even at an early age, like maybe in middle school or so, I at least felt like I was wrong now that I know as an adult, but I felt like I could step on the floor as a 6th or 7th grader and referee a really good high school game. Wasn't the case for sure, but having been around him and other referees and hearing their conversations, knowing most of the basic rules, at least by middle school, I at least had that confidence. I learned really quickly, though, when I started that I was wrong. But no, having watched him, I always knew I wanted to referee. I knew when I was done playing that was something I was interested in. And then I think my junior year of high school, Dad started letting me work some Little League basketball with him, and we do some Little League football as well. And then my first year registered was my first year out of high school.
Wow, that's cool. And so, what year does this make for you?
This is my 13th school year or season, if you will, as a registered basketball official.
So how's it feel to know that you've almost been officiating for half your life?
Well, my kids don't make me feel young as it is. That doesn't help anything hearing that. Let's see, I'm 31 and have almost 13 years in.
Yep, this is year 11 for me. So I'm 25 not 25, 28, more than 95. Getting my numbers jumbled up here. No, but only 11 out of my 28 years. So I've still got a ways to go before I'm halfway mark.
Very cool. What would be, you don't have to mention anything specific unless you want to, what would you say are maybe 1 or 2 of the things you're most proud of in officiating that you've done so far?
That's tough. I mean, being able to work some college basketball, I'm super proud of. I've worked hard for it, just like you. So it's nice to be given an opportunity to advance and work some higher level basketball. I've been blessed with a few state championships, so that's obviously something that I hold close to heart. That was a really cool experience. Just there's a little step up onto the floor whenever you get there, and everybody always tells you that's been there, don't trip whenever you go out there. So that was the biggest thing on my mind when I ran out there the first time, and I still always remember it. So I think that's probably one of the coolest things, I would say.
So I don't expect you to say it, but I'm going to brag for you. You mentioned you're 27 now, 28?
28.
I can't remember, 28 now, and you've worked how many state finals?
Yeah, I've had 3. I've been really blessed. So
we'll talk a little bit about it later. One of the biggest reasons that we all stick with this, one of the things we enjoy the most about it is the camaraderie, the friendships you make, the relationships. That wasn't always the case with me in Austin. When I actually first started working, I worked my first, 6 or 7 years exclusively in Oklahoma, then moved to Arkansas for college, and I think, 2014 or 2015 maybe was my first year in Arkansas. So it's been another 7 or 8 years, something like that I've worked in Arkansas. But I remember my dad had worked for 4 or 5 years already in Arkansas, and him telling me about this little young pup that was one of the best officials in the state of Arkansas. And before I even met you, I did not like you, didn't want nothing to do with you. I saw you at the first association meeting. I was like, that's basically my competition. And then look at us now. But
That's right. Well, you're probably not the only one who feels that way, so.
no, I don't have near the accolades or anything like that. I have worked for 13 years. I'm proud of all of those because it's people don't really understand, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the background type of things about what goes into a season, and then let alone to have done it for 13 years now in 4 different sports, a 5th one at one point, but 4 of them for most of those 13 years. I'm very proud of that for sure.
So talk a little bit about that. Working multiple sports, balancing your schedule, handling officiating with your personal life. I mean, that's got to be tough at times. How do you manage that?
I told my wife, Ashley, when we first started getting pretty serious that if this is going to be a thing, then I kind of feel like it is. I need you to understand that we're going to live our life in seasons. I basically knew that growing up because we did that with Dad. He worked football in the fall, he worked basketball in the winter, and he worked softball in the spring. I knew that. Summer as well. He worked a lot of summer softball. So as far as the scheduling and stuff like that, it takes a huge village for me between kids, all of their various health issues and things like that, and then my own work schedule. Thankfully, I'm blessed enough to work at home, but even with that, working basically year-round, you have to really stay on top of things and stay extremely organized. There's times even I slip up. I do my best not to. Every now and then we do that dreaded double booking that we hate to talk about, but it happens sometimes. You just have to stay really organized, and it helps to have a really supportive team like I have, especially in my family.
I'd agree, and I'd also just kind of emphasize, we're all human. We all are going to make mistakes, and double booking is one of those that is pretty prominent in the basketball community, a sports officiating community, I would say, especially when you're first getting started. There's plenty of people, myself included, you included, we've all double booked. We've all accidentally taken a game, and what that means is, you take a game for one person, and you forget to close the date out on your assigning websites, which means nobody else can send you games if you close it out. And then somebody sends you another game on another site, and you accept that one too. They're for the same day, the same time, 2 different locations. Obviously, we can't be in 2 places at once. So it's just important to know that if you're ever put in that situation, your best bet is to reach out to your signer and let them know, accept fault. I screwed up. I didn't take accountability. I didn't take care of my schedule, and I've double booked myself, and I need help. If you just be transparent, I think that's the biggest thing. The one thing an assigner doesn't want you to do is just not show up or not say anything.
For sure.
So it's really crucial that if it happens, which it happens to us all, that you're just transparent and everything will be okay.
For sure. I think it's at least been a couple of years since I've done that, but yeah, I was reaching for it because it's somewhat close. I live by this thing right here. If I didn't have this, I would be up a creek, because especially the more I've moved up, just like you, the more signers you're working for. Even if you're just talking about one sport, not just for basketball, I think you work for quite a few in Arkansas too. I think I worked for, this year was a few less, but at one point probably 5 or 6 different high school assigners. And then now, 3 different college assigners?
Yeah, it's hard, and especially because they don't all assign the games on the same sites. So
no, and that's the tough part. You have to be sure that you're writing all of that stuff down somewhere else, because you don't have that one site. If everybody signed on the same thing, especially in all 4 sports I work, that'd be heavenly. But it's never going to happen.
It'll be the day whenever every single game is on one site, whether it be NCAA, whether it be NFHS, whether it be my local Boys and Girls Club. They're all going to be on one. That would be absolutely amazing.
That would be great. I just added another one, which I guess I've had arbiter pay before, but I've never, I think it's just for Oklahoma playoffs. I've never had an individual assigner use it. So I just started taking some college softball games, and that's exactly what it's through. So I got to add another app to the repertoire.
Gotta love it. God, oh, you can't get away from it.
No, not at all. So back to a little bit to the personal life stuff. What do you do for a living? We mentioned we both work from home. That's amazing when it comes to officiating, and can't even begin to describe the opportunities that it provides in and of itself.
I would agree 100%. And for me, obviously I've thought of pursuing officiating since I was really young. So I've always kind of tried to work my actual day job around my officiating in a sense. I've tried to kind of find jobs where I'm able to get off work and able to get there. I was lucky enough over the last couple of years to find an e-commerce job. So I work in the Amazon space for helping with some apps and things under a company called Three Colts, where we help people that are selling stuff on Amazon find profitable products. We have a bunch of different apps and products that we push out for those people, and it helps them find things that they can sell and hopefully make some money on Amazon. And you working from home, what's the best part of that for you?
Freedom's the first thing that comes to mind. I don't have to. I mean, as long as I'm not on a Zoom meeting, and we talk about this amongst coworkers at times, as long as I'm not on a Zoom meeting or a teaching class, which is once a week, I don't have to put pants on if I don't want to, which I typically do. I will say that, but
Yeah.
I will say I've jumped into a few like last second meetings, or maybe I forgot when one was coming up and joined it out of haste because I realized I was late or something, and then got in and turned my camera on and realized I didn't have a shirt on. So I'd say freedom and comfort for sure, and then also as far as like back to the officiating part of it, it's just like I mentioned, the opportunities. It's a lot easier for me to get off work, whereas a lot of our fellow officials work your typical 8 to 4, 9 to 5 type jobs where they go to somewhere to work, and it's not nearly as easy for them to get off. For me, the best part specifically is that I don't have a lot of teachers. You either take half a day off or a full day off. Well, I can take PTO in 2-hour increments. So if I need to leave at 2 o'clock,
great.
if I need to leave at 2 o'clock, I can take 2 hours instead of having to take a whole half a day. So it's a huge perk for sure.
Yeah, you can't beat that really. And you're right. A lot of places either you have to take the half day or the full day. That's how I am. So
Yep,
that 2-hour increment thing is really nice.
big time.
So let's kind of roll in. We've kind of talked about ourselves, our mission statement, what we're trying to do here. And another thing that we'd really like to kind of go over is just rules in general, and give an overall synopsis on some rules. You want to talk about that a little bit, or?
Yeah, so I think in the future, this is again our first episode, so bear with us. I hope you're still listening. In the future, we'll probably pick like one rule and maybe one play or 2 plays each week and kind of go over. The aim, or maybe the goal is, at least to begin with, is to talk about some of the most misunderstood things in basketball, whether you're talking about understandings by fans, of your general or typical fan, sometimes even coaches, and then as well, we're big time screaming this stuff to officials because it's our job to know this stuff. So I'd say the first one that comes to mind, if we're going to pick one to start with, would have to be the block charge play. And what a lot of people don't know, you hear the big thing, and I know it's probably one of your biggest pet peeves, was he set or was she set, or he was set. That has nothing to do with a block charge play. It can technically, but it doesn't when it comes to adjudicating. Also, you want to talk about our favorite term to talk to people that don't know what goes into adjudicating a block charge play is.
Oh, definitely, and that's going to be legal guarding position.
Yep.
And I'm actually working on getting something pulled up here for us so we can kind of go over that in depth. You'll just have to bear with me, though, while I do that.
So while he's doing that, just your basic, without pulling the rule book and giving you the exact definition, your basic definition of legal guarding position. In order for me to obtain legal guarding position, if I am guarding my opponent, I have to have 2 feet on the floor, and I have to be facing my opponent. Basic as that. So a lot of times, some of the calls you disagree with so vehemently at times, that's usually what it boils down to. Was a defender ever in legal guarding position? I've seen plays, and even recently, I think even Saturday I can think of one, where somebody took a hit basically directly to the chest, but had slid over late, was never in the actual legal guarding position before the contact, and even though it looked like a charge, it was absolutely a block. So I think a lot of those plays, people aren't watching the defender like we typically are for an entire play or a sequence. They just see the crash and that's what they make their decision off of. So talk a little bit about the specifics that go into a legal guarding position, Austin.
So I think that this picture does a really good job, and it kind of explains the play that you just talked about. I'm really big on having an image with what we're talking about, especially when it comes to rules, and I think these two images right here really show it. And if you can't read it, it says that this picture right here would be a player control foul. And the reason, I don't know, can you see my cursor over there, Kyle?
Yes, you can.
Okay, so if you see right here, there's 2 feet on the ground. This is the defender, and they're facing their opponent right here. They're allowed to slide laterally, obliquely, backwards. They just can't go towards their opponent. And so when they do this movement right here and the opponent goes through their torso, they're not required to have either feet on the court, and this is going to be an offensive foul, a player control foul. Number 5 right here is legal all the way through. Just because they're moving doesn't negate the fact that they're legal. They're allowed to, assuming that the offensive player hasn't went airborne to take a shot, but they're allowed to move. And here's another picture, if I can get this to scroll down for us.
I'd say that's probably one of the biggest misunderstandings. People, number one, like we mentioned, don't know what legal guarding position is, and then also once it's obtained, they don't know that you're allowed to move laterally, obliquely, which means that once I'm legal, I can move side to side. As long as I'm staying in front of you, facing you, I can go diagonally. I can even go backwards. I just can't go forwards into my opponent.
And this is this next image right here really shows what we're talking about. As long as this defender is here in this spot before this offensive player goes airborne, if this offensive player crashes through them, it's an offensive foul. Now, in this image, we see that the ball went through the net. It's important to note that we cannot score a basket when there's a player control foul. So the player control foul causes the ball to become dead, and there won't be any free throws or anything like that. So it's an offensive foul, no basket, and then White will have the ball on the end line for a spot throw-in. Now, in this situation, if this defender were to be sliding over after number 4 had went airborne, what we got, Kyle?
I would say we got a block.
That's right. And the reason is because number 3 is no longer legal after they continue to move once number 4 has went airborne. They illegally contacted number 4, which would make it a block. So, a couple of images there. Definitely helps to see the image while we talk about it. Well, I just went up a lot here, so I'm sharing that, but
Oh, you're good.
over. And yeah, I think that those images really kind of help to showcase it. We might have a clip. I might have a clip I can actually put up.
That would be awesome.
Let me see if I do.
I'd say one other one without in the future will be a little more organized as far as having graphics, and we're kind of spitballing these and didn't really plan for them. But as far as misunderstood rules or misunderstandings that we hear about all the time, over the back is one that we hear a lot. Austin, can you tell me exactly how many times can the term over the back be found in a federation or even an NCAA rule book?
Well, it's a big old goose egg, Kyle.
It is not a single time. What people are looking at, and at times they're correct. There's illegal contact created on a rebounding foul that constitutes what some people know as over the back. It is not found anywhere in the rule book. A pushing foul is the closest thing we have to any of that kind of contact. So most of the time, if a rebounder displaces somebody from behind, meaning I have a right to my space and they displace me from behind on a rebound, it's going to be a pushing foul. That's when a lot of people you hear screaming over the back. It's not actually over the back. Now, the simple act of, let's say I'm taller or maybe more athletic and can jump over somebody, reach over them without creating illegal contact, grab a rebound and come back down to the floor. That's what a lot of people scream is over the back. There's nothing in the rule book that touches anything remotely close to that. That's just an advantage gained by somebody that is more athletic or more physically gifted.
And
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think I found a play that's similar, but nothing that shows them going through, so kind of difficult to really show that one on
That's
on an
one we'll definitely bring up again, and we'll probably cover it even more so in depth in the future.
I
Kind of
think
back. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I think we'll have to get some clips on that one because I think
Yeah.
showing some clips because a lot of the time people also get confused about you know maybe a player who continuously tries to clear out an opponent who's entitled to their spot, and so they want what a lot of people would call over the back, when in reality the person that was attempting to block out and rebound is the one that fouled.
Yep.
So I think that it would be really good to have some clips of that. So we'll have to come back to that, kind of circle back once we have some clips that would kind of give a better understanding of that, just to really, really showcase what would be a push on the defense or what would be a push on the offense in those situations.
I've even seen a player trying to block out multiple times this year that literally wraps their arms around and then holds their opponent. Sorry, I grabbed my earbud. Then holds their opponent, like interlocks their fingers. So I've never seen a hold, I don't think, until this year on a rebounding foul.
Well, there's a first time for everything. We know that in our games. We have situations all the time where the unexpected happens, and you have to be prepared for the unexpected.
For sure.
And that's definitely one of them right there, wouldn't you say?
For sure. So kind of going back to some of our background in officiating and some of the things that we, not just us, I guess most officials appreciate and enjoy the most about officiating. We talked about the camaraderie. Mentioned some of the people you talked Mike Durham, Ron Thompson, some of those guys. What does it mean for one to be a mentor in what we do, and then two, talk about what that looks like for us now, and I'm getting to the point where we're now kind of becoming those people giving back at times.
I think that when somebody first gets into officiating, finding somebody that's a mentor that's already in that space is probably one of the most, if not the most important thing, because you have to find somebody that, one, you're safe to talk to and that you can talk to about anything, somebody that's not going to go talk to other people or tell other people your business. You have to find somebody that has safe conversations with you, in a sense. And two, you have to find somebody that's willing to push you to be better, somebody that's willing to review your clips and be honest with you if you've screwed something up or if you got a rule wrong, and just hold you accountable, kind of like you and I do. We text daily, Kyle and I do, and send each other rules or plays or things like that. And we just hold each other accountable to get better and be better officials. And I think that having somebody in your corner that you can go to and safely talk about, a situation that happened in one of your games or anything like that is probably some of the biggest part when it comes to talk about us being mentors for, some of the newer officials that come in, or, anybody that reaches out and asks me a question. I think that's crucial too. We, as we have these conversations where we get to kind of talk about our experiences and rules and the situations we've been through, we also along the way get to tell those to the newer officials that are coming in and what they're supposed to be doing, where they're supposed to be standing when they ask us questions, et cetera, et cetera. And so I just think that the mentor program, in a sense, for officiating is crucial, because I think that's what helps us all get better, holding us all accountable and just kind of working back through the things that we screw up on, because we're all human. We're always going to miss plays.
For sure. I'd say, like, to reiterate what you're talking about with, I call it and a lot of us do call it our tool belts. Mine was very lacking when I first started officiating, but the more veteran officials, and then now that we've got specific mentors that we've been around and bounced things back and forth off of, holy cow, it's amazing the things that those relationships will add to your tool belt. Whether it's like you're talking about, communication maybe with coaches, communication with your partners even, during games, outside of off the floor, well, whatever the case may be. But talk about maybe a couple of the specific mentors in that sense that you've had throughout now, would you say 11 years now?
That's right, yeah. I think one of the first people that I ever met in officiating when I came to Fort Smith to start was Scott Clumphus, and he's been detrimental. I mean, just crucial. Not detrimental. What am I talking about? I mean, he's been a great guy. He's one of those people that's going to give the shirt off his back, as I'm sure you would attest to, and he's always there to answer a question about any rule I might have a question about, any situation, any even personal life stuff. If I've got something going on and I need to talk to somebody, he's always been that person that could be there for that. And I think that that's been huge for me. He's probably one of, if not the number one. Obviously, my dad, as I'm sure your dad. And I mean, there's been so many people that I've met that have helped push me in the right direction or helped show me something that I was doing wrong that have just been amazing. I mean, I'm really blessed to meet all the people that I've met over the last 11 years, and I think it would be difficult for me to list every single person that has helped me in some way, shape, form, if you know what I mean,
For
anything like
sure.
that.
For sure. For me, definitely my dad had to be the first one. I guess I didn't really start trying to get into college ball until about 4 years ago. So the first 8 or 9 years, he was it for me. And obviously I've had others along the way, but specifically in high school ball. But dad for one, for sure. Just can't say that enough, man.
Mm.
The things he's done for us. Just an example of talking about maybe not the shirt off your back, but the way he views things and the way he treats us and sees us. The first thing he asked me on Saturday, headed home from my NAIA game, he has nothing but questions about my game, and the man has just left his own Division I game. But like that's exactly who he is, though. Aside from Scott, there's two specific ones in Tulsa that got me into 5A, 6A basketball in Tulsa. Bobby Kelly and Brad Johnson. Can't say enough about what they did to prepare me for where I'm at now. Getting to work some Division II college basketball. That was a different animal for me. I was used to calling mostly just small school basketball around home, around LaFleur County. Didn't get outside of that much just because I'd never really gone to camps, didn't really care to, and I kind of had a full enough schedule anyways as a 19, 20, 21-year-old following dad around. So they gave me a shot when I was probably 22, 23, way too young and not prepared to be working some pretty high-level high school basketball. But man, I had to learn on the fly really, really quickly though. Made me a lot better official though. And then I think one we both share would be Owen for sure. Owen Short's 70 to 80 game Division I men's official that you wouldn't ever know it if you met him. Again, the type of guy that'd give you the shirt off his back. It is exactly what we look to and what we want to be as far as where we want to go in college basketball, but still is down to earth enough to bounce plays back and forth to, or curious about where we're going or what kind of games we have and what we have going on and things like that. But you just can't really count the blessings as far as what mentors can mean in officiating for sure.
It's unmatched, it really is. And you mentioned getting thrown into some situations at 21 and 22. It kind of just reminds me, a really big quote that I got told when I first started officiating was that we have to become comfortable in uncomfortable situations. And you couldn't have put it any more truer with getting thrown into games that you may not think you're ready for, but somebody put you in that game for a reason, and
sure.
They believe that you're capable. And so you just have to have that mindset and go out there and work and do the best that you can. Like I said earlier, and I'll say it time and time again as we go through, we're all human. We all miss plays. What's important is that we go back and we learn why we miss those plays and how we won't miss those plays in the future. And getting put in situations where we're not ready and we're not comfortable is the best way to do it. Gives us plenty of clips to go back and watch.
I feel like that very accurately describes my entire first season working Division II basketball last year. And you know it because I talked to you before pretty much every single game, either through text or most of them on the phone. But man, if I didn't have to get really used to being uncomfortable, it wasn't like I wasn't prepared. And like you said, like I was put on that game for a reason. I was capable. But man, not in my head. I didn't know what to expect. I mean, and I've got anxiety as it is anyways, but then you add all the unknown factors of where do I park? Where's this gym at? Where's the locker room at? Where do I go at this point? And then even just the on-court stuff, how we handle ourselves and some of the different ways we communicate, and just the nuances of college basketball that are completely different from what we do on a nightly basis in high school basketball. That I wasn't used to that, so had to get very, very used to being uncomfortable very quickly.
I think it also helps us. It doesn't just help you in officiating, but it helps you in your personal life too. Helps you in anything you do, your actual job. I mean, I can tell you right now that officiating has definitely improved my communication in the other aspects of my life, at home, with family, with friends, with work, with whatever it is I might be doing. Just being put in those situations where you have to talk to players, you have to talk to coaches, answer a question. And it's really important to think about what you're going to say before you're going to say it. So just let them speak, listen to what they have to say, and then respond. And that's helped me a lot at home.
For sure. That's something I still work on myself, and you'll see it in the podcast. I'll cut Austin off by accident. I'm the worst about it, but same thing with, especially when it comes to communication with coaches or even partners telling me what they have in the middle of a game and talking about a certain play, or if I'm listening to a coach about a situation. That's being a good listener is one of the best things, best qualities you can have as an official. That also goes outside of the officiating, for sure.
Right. And being approachable too. That's something I've been really trying to work on. I'm not trying to be standoffish or anything like that. So definitely want to be able to have a solid communication, solid conversation with whoever comes in front of me.
For sure. Two more things I can think of we need to get to before we call it good for episode 1. Number 1, and we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, talk about some of the organization as far as your own experiences and what it's like to balance your work life. You mentioned working at home. You've got 2 daughters. You've got a lot to balance on top of officiating, which is enough when you're working 3, 4, 5 nights a week. So talk a little bit about what goes into that, what it looks like for you, and maybe talk a little bit about the specifics that go into your scheduling and how you do it.
I mean, for me, I'm terrible. I'm absolutely terrible at managing my schedule. I don't remember very well. I don't remember where I'm going. I don't remember what I'm doing. So I have to write it down. If I don't write it down, I'm going to have a tough time. So I put a calendar up in my kitchen. As soon as I walk in the kitchen every day, it's one of the first things that I see. And it's the whole next month worked out. So right now it's all of January, obviously. All my games, all the locations, where they're going to be at, and what time the game is going to start. And I have that all on there, so I can look at it. I can plan my week out in advance, and I can say, okay, well, I'm going here on Thursday. It's a 4-hour drive, at least, if I don't get behind traffic or something. So I need to plan a little bit more time than that, and I have to be there by this time. And so then I know that I need to leave by this time from my house at the absolute latest, or else I'm going to be late. And I plan that for all of my games. I double, triple check multiple times throughout the day, throughout the week, just making sure that there's no issues with any of my, I don't know how to explain it, like we talked about earlier with our double bookings, anything like that. I get so anxious sometimes thinking that maybe I missed a day or maybe I did something, even though I know that I double, triple checked whenever I took the date to begin with. So I'd say that, for one, for me, I've got to have a visible calendar. I've got to be able to look at it every day. My iPhone's not good enough. I miss notifications all the time. So it's got to be something physical and in front of me that I can go back and review every single day, because, technology, all the apps on your phone, all the different things that we get, I would just potentially miss it. And so that's kind of my big way of managing schedule. And the same thing with, you're talking about personal life, having a girlfriend, 2 kids. She has kids, so we have to manage all of our time together. And so I really try to make sure that we get at least one solid day every single week. Like you said, we're gone 3, 4, 5 nights sometimes. So we really try to have at least that one solid day where we can communicate, sit down, just watch a movie, watch a show, do something together. That way it's just us time. And it's important to keep that there.
You definitely have to be intentional with your time, especially during the season when we don't have a lot of time at home.
I mean, and a lot of time is what we don't have during the season. It's pretty.
Which we're technically home, working from home, but we're just not home like during family time, like what most people consider family time.
That's right. When it's sitting down, everything's quiet, and you get to spend some quality time together with the family, or watching a movie, playing a game, whatever the case may be.
For sure. I've gotten to where I try to be overly intentional and definitely enjoy those times because they're rare. Especially working pretty much year-round. I work football in the fall, basketball in the winter, softball in the spring, and then am gone most of June and usually a little bit of July as well for softball. So I am on the road a lot.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's worth it in the long run, but damn if it isn't busy sometimes.
For sure. For sure. All right, so I'm kind of a sneak peek going forward. If you've made it this far with us, we appreciate you for sticking around. We hope you enjoy. We do have some good things to talk about. We'll get a little more organized as we go along. But for next episode, we have a very, very special guest. We've already mentioned his name once. I'm really excited to get to interview him on Saturday. Today's what, Tuesday? Yeah, on Saturday, I am flying out to Fort Smith to go to Rupp Arena and watch our friend Owen work Kentucky versus Georgia. So after the game, we'll catch an interview. We'll talk a little bit about his experiences in officiating as well. Man, he's got a story too, coming from where he came from, calling some of the same type of basketball that we grew up calling, and then how quickly he made it where he's at and now has stuck around and made a name for himself. So I'm really excited to get to talk to him and hear some of his thoughts.
I think it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be a lot of good input and just, from somebody that works top level Division I men's basketball to be able to get a firsthand look on, how he got there, what he does, how he does things, how he prepares. I think it's just awesome info that you got to be able to tune in for. So we hope to see you next time as well.
For sure. Austin, any thoughts to end on before we call it good for episode 1?
No, just thanks for joining us here on Call It Both Ways, and hope you stick with us. And if you have anything you want to know, feel free to figure out how to get in touch with us, and we'll definitely cover it as we go along.
Sounds good. We appreciate your time. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.